Deep within a dark Andean temple, a stone face stares out with inhuman eyes. Did ancient priests truly speak with otherworldly beings through these carvings? Over 3,000 years ago, long before the Inca built their empire, the Chavin culture flourished as the mother culture of the Andes. Their greatest legacy is not a city, but a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers filled with stone enigmas. By the end of this journey, you will understand the secret language of 25 of their most mysterious carvings. These are not simple decorations. They are a complex, unsolved code left by a shamanistic society utterly obsessed with transformation and supernatural power. We will uncover why a massive granite dagger was buried in the temple's heart and what the smiling gods were really hiding. What does it mean for a civilization to communicate through stone for millennia? Buried at the very center of the temple labyrinth, the Lanzon monolith waits. This is not a simple statue. It is a 15-foot-tall blade of granite, plunged directly into the floor of a dark, cross-shaped chamber as if anchoring the entire universe. To stand before it is to feel a primal chill. Its body is humanoid, but its head is a nightmare fusion of jaguar and crocodile, with deep-set eyes and massive, downward-curving fangs. From its headdress, a writhing mass of serpents spills out, each one carved with meticulous, terrifying detail. This was the axis mundi for the Chavin people, the central pillar connecting their world to the heavens above and the underworld below. It was their great oracle, a conduit through which priests might have communicated with a powerful, ferocious spirit. The air in that chamber must have thrummed with energy, thick with the scent of burning plants and the low chant of rituals we can only try to reconstruct. Then, just a short distance away, we find a carving that offers a completely different vision. The smiling god presents a face of pure, almost ecstatic serenity. Its eyes are closed, its lips are curled into a gentle, knowing smile. This is not the face of a predator, but of a being in a state of blissful communion. How do we reconcile these two faces of the divine, one a snarling predator and the other a serene visionary? This duality may be the entire point. It speaks to a belief system obsessed with transformation and the many states of consciousness. The terrifying Lanzon could represent the raw, untamed power of the spirit world, a force that must be confronted and channeled. The smiling god might represent the ultimate goal, the enlightened state achieved by the shaman who successfully navigates that fearsome power. One shows the difficult, dangerous journey, while the other shows the peaceful arrival. High on the temple walls, staring down from the stone, the tenon heads once held court. These were not passive decorations, they were massive stone sculptures carved to project outwards from the walls, their faces pushing into the space of the living. Each one is different, a gallery of altered states. Some faces are clearly human, but their eyes are rolled back in ecstatic trance. Others are caught mid-transformation, their human features contorting, their mouths widening into feline snarls as jaguar traits emerge. You can almost feel the San Pedro cactus at work here, a powerful hallucinogenic brew that would have allowed Chavin shamans to shed their human forms and journey into the spirit world. These heads lining the walls created a chorus of witnesses, a permanent audience of beings who had crossed the threshold, forever reminding visitors of the temple's transformative power. But the spirit world that Chavin accessed was not limited to local animals. Venture deeper and you will find the caiman. This is a startling discovery, the detailed carving of a powerful reptile from the distant Amazonian lowlands. Imagine the journey this symbol took. Here, at a temple built in the high Andes, thousands of feet above sea level, the priests carved a creature of the steamy, tropical rivers. Its presence is a silent testament to the staggering reach of Chavin influence. This was not an isolated village. It was a hub, a destination for pilgrims and traders who brought ideas, goods, and spiritual symbols from worlds away. The caiman's power, borrowed from a foreign ecosystem, was absorbed into the Chavin's own cosmology, making their temple a map of the entire known universe. And to rule over this universe, someone held the eagle scepter. This intricately carved stone object is not a tool of war, but an emblem of supreme authority. Fashioned with an eagle's head at its peak, a creature known for its dominion over the skies, it represents a power that is both seen and unquestioned. You can picture a high priest or a chieftain gripping this scepter during ceremonies, its weight a physical reminder of their connection to the celestial realm. The eagle's sharp gaze and powerful beak symbolized a ruler's ability to see all and to command the forces of nature. Together, these three carvings paint a vivid picture of the Chavin world, a realm where human consciousness could be reshaped, where geographical boundaries were spiritually meaningless, and where authority was drawn from the heavens themselves. Yet the temple reveals even stranger transformations. One carving presents a figure so distorted it defies simple explanation. This is the contorted anthropomorph, a humanoid form caught in a painful, impossible twist, its spine curved and limbs bent at unnatural angles. Some scholars see this as a literal depiction of a shaman's body during a profound trance state, a physical manifestation of the spirit's struggle to break free from human form. Others propose a darker, more medical interpretation. A parasitic disease called carrion's disease, spread by sandflies native to the region, can cause severe fevers and chronic skin lesions that contort the body. Could the Chavin have interpreted this horrifying illness as a visible, tangible sign of a spiritual affliction, or perhaps even a powerful, albeit terrifying, transformation? The carving forces us to question where the line was drawn between a sickness of the body and a sacred state of being. This theme of transformation continues in a far more unified and powerful display. Carved in low relief, a procession of felines marches with a singular, predatory purpose. These are not the individualized tenon heads, but a synchronized army of stylized jaguars or pumas, their powerful bodies and sharp claws rendered in repeating, rhythmic patterns. The jaguar was the ultimate power animal in the Chavin world, a creature that moved seamlessly between the forest floor and the treetops, between day and night, symbolizing a mastery over all realms. It represented raw strength, the secrets of the underworld, and the very essence of shamanic power, the ability to move unseen and strike with decisive force. A single jaguar carving is significant, but a procession of them is a statement of overwhelming spiritual force. This parade of predators likely represents a ritual enactment, a line of priests or dancers channeling the jaguar's collective power, creating a moving current of supernatural energy to cleanse or protect the sacred space. Where one contorted figure shows the personal, internal agony of transformation, this feline army shows its organized, external, and terrifyingly beautiful application. Soaring above the earthly struggles of jaguars and contorted figures, the harpy eagle carving surveys the temple from a divine perspective. This is no ordinary bird. With a wingspan that can stretch over 6 feet and talons as thick as a man's wrist, the harpy eagle is a breathtaking predator of the Amazonian canopy. Its depiction here is a masterclass in symbolic power. The eagle's sharp, penetrating gaze is carved to convey an all-seeing vision, a connection to the celestial realm far above the tangled concerns of the forest floor. For the Chavin, this creature embodied the ultimate seer, a being whose authority came from its vantage point in the heavens, representing a form of power that was both majestic and utterly detached. This celestial authority finds its earthly counterpart in the symbolism of the serpent belt. Another carving reveals a powerful figure whose waist is cinched by a belt of intertwined living serpents. In the Andean world, the serpent was never a simple villain. It was a profound symbol of the life-giving forces of water, weaving through the underground world and emerging as a sign of fertility and renewal. A belt made of serpents, then, is not an accessory but a declaration. It signifies a mastery over these subterranean powers, suggesting the wearer could command the very waters that nourished the crops and sustained civilization. This figure stands as a bridge connecting the celestial vision of the eagle with the fertile, chthonic energy of the earth. But how did one activate this bridge between worlds? The answer echoes through the stone corridors. The carving of the strombus shell trumpeter holds a vital clue. We see a figure raising a large conch shell trumpet to its lips, an instrument of both ritual and profound sensory impact. Actual strombus shells, sourced from the warm coastal waters hundreds of miles away, have been found within the temple. These were not silent artifacts. When blown, they produce a deep, resonant, and haunting moan, a sound that seems to vibrate through your very bones. Now, picture that sound within the temple's unique architecture. The complex was laced with narrow canals and ventilation shafts. When a priest blew the trumpet in one chamber, its low-frequency drone would travel through these stone channels, amplifying and distorting, filling the entire labyrinth with an otherworldly chorus. In the darkness, surrounded by the staring tenon heads with the scent of hallucinogens thick in the air, this pervasive, non-directional sound would disorient the mind, breaking down normal perception and paving the way for visions. The trumpeter was not just making noise, he was conducting the very atmosphere, using sound as a key to unlock the doors of consciousness for all who were present. But the spiritual economy of the Chavin reached far beyond the sound of the conch. Another carving reveals an object of immense material and symbolic worth, the spondylus shell. Known as the thorny oyster, this is not a simple seashell. Its exterior is a brilliant, fiery orange-red covered in sharp, intricate spines. To the ancient Andeans, this shell was more precious than gold. It could only be harvested by specialized divers from the warm Pacific waters off the coast of Ecuador, a staggering distance from the highland temple. Its journey to Chavn de Huntar was a pilgrimage in itself. The shell's spiritual significance was profound. Its vibrant color was linked to the life-giving essence of blood, and its arrival via ocean currents connected it intrinsically to water, fertility, and divine feminine power. To possess and carve the spondylus was to command the very forces of creation, a tangible piece of the sacred sea enshrined in the heart of the mountains. This single object speaks of an economic and ritual network spanning thousands of miles, a web of exchange that brought the power of the ocean to the altar of the highland gods. This connection to a structured cosmic order finds its personification in another stone. The anthropomorphic stela stands as a tall, commanding slab, its surface carved with the image of a rigid frontal figure. Unlike the writhing Lanzon or the ecstatic tenon heads, this figure embodies order and authority. It stands symmetrically, often gripping specific ritual objects in its hands. The key to its identity lies in this iconography. Is it holding a staff, a symbol of earthly rule, or a mystical weapon to subdue chaos? Is its head crowned with an elaborate headdress, layered with symbols that might denote a specific title or lineage? Some researchers see a deified ancestor, a founding ruler forever watching over their descendants. Others interpret the figure as a representation of a specific deity, a god of order who brought structure to the world. The stela does not depict the frenzy of transformation, but the stable, enduring power that makes such transformations possible and meaningful. It is the anchor point, the divine king or god who administers the cosmos that the shamans so wildly explored. A serpent with two heads stares in opposite directions, its single body forming a bridge between worlds. This powerful symbol, the double-headed serpent, appears across ancient cultures, but for the Chavin its meaning was deeply rooted in their own cosmology. One head likely gazed into the world of the living, the tangible reality of the mountains and rivers, while the other peered into the spirit realm, the domain of gods and ancestors. This was not a symbol of contradiction, but of connection. It represented the endless cycle of existence, the belief that life and death were not in points but part of a continuous, flowing loop. much like the serpent itself, which sheds its skin to be reborn. This profound understanding of duality leads us to a more unsettling carving, one that modern eyes find difficult to reconcile. The trophy head is a recurring, chilling motif. These are not portraits of the living, but stark representations of severed heads, often depicted with closed eyes and a limp rope threaded through the lips. What does their presence in a spiritual center truly mean? Some theories point to literal warfare and human sacrifice, suggesting these carvings commemorate victories over rival groups or offerings made to appease the gods. Yet another interpretation is more symbolic. In shamanic traditions, the head is the seat of the soul and consciousness. A trophy head might not represent a murdered enemy, but the harvesting of a powerful soul force, a spiritual energy captured and brought back to empower the temple and its priests. It could be the ultimate symbol of a shaman's journey, returning from the spirit world with a prize of transcendent knowledge. This act of channeling power, whether through symbolic capture or ritual, finds its ultimate expression in the earliest depiction of a being who would become a cornerstone of Andean belief. At Chavin de Huntar, we find the primordial image of the staff god. This is not just another deity, it is the archetype, the original template for a figure that would be worshipped for over 2,000 years across subsequent empires. Carved in stone, this foundational staff god is often shown frontally, holding two ornate staffs or scepters, one in each hand. These are not weapons, but emblems of absolute authority over the dual forces of nature, perhaps representing the sky and the earth, or order and chaos. The fact that this iconic god appears here, in this labyrinthine temple, establishes Chavin de Huntar as a spiritual furnace where the core concepts of Andean civilization were first forged and set into motion. Even the most terrifying Chavin deities had a specific profile, a sharp silhouette carved with intent. Look closely at the fanged deity profile, a visage dominated by a single, massive, and perfectly curved fang. This is not a full face, but a side view that captures the moment of a bite, the instant of penetration. This fanged motif is the absolute hallmark of Chavin art, a symbol repeated so often it becomes a visual mantra. What do these fangs truly mean? They are far more than a sign of a predator. They represent a shaman's spiritual tool, the ultimate ability to puncture the thin veil between our world and the spirit realm. Like a jaguar's bite, which delivers a swift and decisive end, these fangs symbolize the instant of transformation, the moment a priest's consciousness breaks through into another reality. They are the sharp end of a prayer, the physical manifestation of a power that can tear a hole in the fabric of the known universe. Then, in a dramatic shift, the art turns from the visceral to the abstract. Alongside the snarling profile, you find the geometric labyrinth. This is a carving of an intricate, interlocking pattern of lines and steps, a maze with no clear beginning or end. Do not mistake this for simple decoration. This is a sacred diagram, a map of the cosmos itself. Its complex pathways mirror the actual, bewildering corridors of the temple. To walk those tunnels was to physically enact this pattern, to move through a spiritual puzzle where every turn was a choice and every chamber a new level of understanding. This step-fret design is a cosmological blueprint representing the journey of initiation, the winding path a soul must travel to reach enlightenment. Where the fangs show the violent moment of entry into the spirit world, the labyrinth charts the long, complex journey one must take once inside. The ultimate goal of a Chavin shaman was not just to see the spirit world, but to become a part of it. One carving captures this metamorphosis in stunning detail. We see a human figure, but its hands are no longer human. Jagged claws extend from the fingertips, the beginnings of powerful jaguar paws. Across its face, the skin seems to ripple with the scales of a serpent emerging around the eyes. This is the transforming shaman, a being caught between two states of existence. This was not a symbolic costume change. For the Chavin, this was a literal spiritual truth. Through the use of potent hallucinogens and deep trance, the shaman believed they could shed their human identity and fuse with the power of their animal counterparts. They were not just communicating with the Jaguar spirit, they were becoming the Jaguar, gaining its strength, its stealth, and its otherworldly perception. This shapeshifting was the very essence of their power, allowing them to travel to realms inaccessible to ordinary people. This concept of fluid identity spills over into the very inhabitants of that spirit world. Another stone reveals an impossible creature, a pure animal hybrid. It might have the body of a soaring condor but the snarling head of a puma, or the coiled body of a serpent tipped with the deadly talons of an eagle. This being never drew a single breath in our world. It is a direct manifestation of the logic of the spirit realm, a place where the core essences of different animals could combine into new, more potent forms. A jaguar's strength fused with an eagle's vision created a guardian spirit of unimaginable perception and power. These hybrids were not monsters, they were the perfected inhabitants of the divine, representing the ultimate potential of nature's raw materials when freed from physical constraints. But how did the community participate in this incredible journey? The answer lies in a seemingly simple object, the ritual rattle. Carvings show these ornate instruments, often made of gold or precious materials, clutched in the hands of priests. The sound they produced was not the deep drone of the conch shell, but something far more rhythmic and percussive. Imagine the scene in the temple plaza. The air is thick with smoke, a shaman begins his transformation, and the steady, shaking rhythm of the rattle fills the space. This sound was a hypnotic anchor, a collective heartbeat for the ceremony. Its rhythm would synchronize the breathing and the heart rates of the participants, unifying the crowd into a single, receptive entity. The rattle did not just accompany the ritual, it orchestrated it, using sound waves to physically and emotionally bind the community together as they witnessed one of their own journey to the other side. One carving presents a figure frozen in the act of devotion. The offering bearer kneels, his body angled forward, hands extending a precious object toward an unseen deity. The offering itself is often a spondylus shell or an ornate container, its value undeniable. This was not a casual gift, it was a fundamental transaction, the very engine of the Chavin spiritual world. Through these offerings, the people and their priestly intermediaries communicated with the gods, trading material wealth for divine favor. Imagine a pilgrim having traveled for weeks, finally reaching the temple gates. They would not have been allowed to approach the terrifying Lanzon directly. Instead, they would present their offering to a priest, an elite mediator who held the power to channel their plea into the spirit realm. This ritualized giving reinforced the entire social structure, cementing the authority of the priesthood while providing a tangible way for every person to participate in the cosmic order. Their gift was a key turned in the lock of the divine, but the Chavin did not only mark their rituals with physical objects, they also used the sky itself. Deep within the temple complex lies a specific architectural feature known as an astronomical alignment marker. It is a seemingly simple stone, but its placement is precise and deliberate. On the morning of the winter solstice, when the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, a single, sharp beam of light would penetrate a narrow ventilation shaft. This ray of sunlight would travel down the dark corridor, illuminating one specific carving, perhaps the fanged profile of a deity, for just a few moments each year. This was no accident, it was a celestial clock built into the very bones of the temple. The Chavin priests were master astronomers, tracking the sun's slow dance across the heavens. They understood that the cosmos was a living, breathing entity, and by aligning their sacred space with its cycles, they could harness its power. On that one sacred day, the sun itself became a priest, activating the stone and flooding the dark chamber with a confirmation of their faith. The temple was not just a building, it was a living instrument harmonizing the earth with the stars. Amidst the triumphant gods and transforming shamans, a single carving stands apart. The weeping figure is a stark anomaly. Its head is bowed, its hands often covering its face, its entire posture radiating a grief so profound it feels out of place in this temple of power. What tragedy could this represent? Is it a depiction of a mythological loss, a god mourning the death of another deity? Or is it something more human, a representation of the initiate's own despair before achieving enlightenment? The journey through the temple was not all ecstatic transformation. It was also a path of ordeal and purification. This figure may embody the necessary sorrow of letting go, the profound grief of shedding one's old self before being reborn into a new state of being. It is a quiet, heartbreaking reminder that even in a world of supreme spiritual power, there was still room for tears. The path to the gods was paved with both terror and profound sadness. From this deeply emotional depiction, we shift to one of the most intellectually puzzling carvings in the entire complex. The abstract sound wave appears as a series of repeating, undulating lines, a pattern that seems to pulse with a strange energy. To the modern eye, it looks less like an animal and more like a scientific diagram. Researchers have proposed a fascinating theory that this is a stylized representation of an acoustic wave. We know that Chavin were masters of psychoacoustics, using the deep moan of the conch shell trumpets to disorient and alter consciousness. This carving could be a conceptual map of that very sound, a permanent echo of the ritual's power etched into the temple wall. It is as if the priests were not only manipulating sound, but were also trying to understand and depict its fundamental nature, to give a visual form to the invisible force that unlocked the minds of their followers. This was not just art, it was proto-science, an attempt to chart the physics of the spirit world. And standing guard over all these mysteries at the very end of a long corridor or the threshold of the most sacred chamber is the final guardian. This lesser-known carving is often a composite creature, perhaps with the heavy body of a bear and the penetrating gaze of an owl, a being designed for one purpose: to block the way. Its location is its message. Having passed the weeping initiate and understood the power of sacred sound, the pilgrim would confront this last formidable protector. It does not snarl or threaten with fangs. Instead, it projects an aura of immovable resolve. To pass this guardian meant you were worthy, that you had navigated the labyrinth of both the temple and your own mind. It was the ultimate test, the final seal on secrets too profound for the uninitiated. With this last sentinel, the gallery of 25 carvings is complete, a stone testament to a civilization that sought the divine through every possible means, from the terror of the fanged god to the quiet science of a sound wave, proving their world was as complex, as emotional, and as intellectually daring as our own. This chamber was designed for a profound and terrifying intimacy. Unlike the open plazas where crowds might gather, the Lanzon's home is a cramped, cross-shaped gallery, a space so dark and confined that only a select few could ever enter. The air here would have been still and heavy, the ceiling low, the walls pressing in. This was not a place for public spectacle, but for a private, volatile communion between a spiritual specialist and the stone god itself. The Lanzon was more than a statue to be worshipped from a distance. It was understood as a living entity, a conduit. As the axis mundi, its head reached into the realm of the celestial gods, its feet anchored deep in the watery underworld, and its body stood here in our world as the central pillar that held all three realms in balance. To approach it was to stand at the very center of the universe. Imagine a shaman, having prepared for days through fasting and ritual, finally stepping into that oppressive darkness. The only light might have come from a single, flickering oil lamp, casting dancing shadows across the monolith's fanged snarl. The key to unlocking its voice was a combination of sensory overload and carefully controlled ritual technology. We know the priests used the San Pedro cactus, a potent brew that could induce powerful visions, blurring the line between the stone and the spirit it contained. At the same time, from another chamber, the deep, moaning call of the strombus shell trumpet would echo through the temple's ventilation shafts. In that confined space, the sound would not come from one direction. It would surround the shaman, vibrating through the stone floor and filling the air with a disorienting, otherworldly hum. In this state, with his mind opened by entheogens and his senses shattered by pervasive sound, the shaman would not just be looking at the Lanzon. He would be merging with it. His own consciousness would feel as if it were flowing into the granite, and the god's fierce intelligence would flow back into him. The prophecies that emerged were not his own. They were the directives of the axis mundi, the judgments of a being who could see all worlds at once. This was the beating heart of the entire Chavin cult. A pilgrim's offering, a community's plea for rain, the fate of a leader, all were brought here to this dark room, to be channeled through a human vessel who had temporarily become one with the central pillar of existence. The Lanzon did not merely represent power, it was a machine for generating divine communication, and its cramped, echoing chamber was the control room for an entire spiritual empire. Each of those stone heads projecting from the temple wall tells a different story of transcendence. Look closely at the first few, and you see the early, unsettling signs of a trance state beginning. Their human faces are mostly intact, but their eyes have rolled back into their skulls, showing only the whites. The mouths are slack, the expressions distant, as if the person's awareness is already detaching from their physical form. This is the initial threshold, the moment the familiar self starts to dissolve. Further along the wall, the transformation intensifies. The human nose broadens and flattens, the lips pull back into a permanent, silent snarl, and sharp, stylized fangs push through the gums. Patches of skin texture change, becoming rough like a jaguar's pelt. These heads are no longer human, nor are they fully beast. They are beings caught in the violent, ecstatic act of becoming. They represent the peak of the shamanic journey, a total fusion with the ultimate power animal. But then there are the outliers, the heads that do not fit this clean progression. One might have a face swollen and distorted, with features that seem to sag under an unseen weight. Another might show lesions or unusual markings across the cheek and brow. These could be records of something else entirely, the physical toll of powerful hallucinogens, or even the visible symptoms of a disease like Carrion's disease. For the Chavin, the line between a spiritual ordeal and a physical illness may have been invisible. A fever that contorted the body might have been seen not as a curse, but as a visible sign of a fierce inner battle with a spirit. This gallery was far more than decoration. It was a permanent visual guide to the many paths of existence one could encounter within these walls. For a pilgrim approaching the temple, this stone chorus was a breathtaking and terrifying welcome. It promised that here you could become something entirely new, but the journey would reshape you, body and soul, in ways you could never predict. The temple itself was a massive musical instrument engineered for spiritual resonance. Modern acoustic archaeology has peeled back the stone to reveal a stunning truth. The labyrinth of narrow canals snaking beneath the floors, long thought to be simple drains for rainwater, served a dual, brilliant purpose. Engineers found that these stone channels are perfectly shaped to act as sound conduits. When a priest blew a strombus shell trumpet in one of the sunken courtyards, its low, moaning frequency would travel through these hidden passages. The sound would not fade, it would amplify, emerging from multiple openings and ventilation shafts at once. The entire temple complex would be filled with a pervasive, disorienting drone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. This was not an accident, it was acoustic architecture of the highest order. The carvings were central players in this sensory symphony. Take the Lanzon, sequestered in its dark, cross-shaped chamber. This was not just a spiritual focal point, it was an acoustic one. The chamber's unique shape and the monolith's own granite mass would have caused the sound waves to collect and resonate specifically around that central pillar. The god's fanged face would have been bathed in this vibrating energy, making the statue itself seem to hum with a terrifying, living presence. For an initiate already under the influence of hallucinogens, this omnipresent sound would shatter their sense of reality. They could not locate the source, they were simply immersed in it, their own heartbeat syncing with the temple's artificial one. The abstract sound wave carving suddenly makes perfect sense in this context. It is a permanent diagram of the very vibrations the priests were mastering. The carvings were not just to be seen, but to be heard, their power activated by a sacred frequency that guided the soul to the threshold of another world. The stone itself seems to writhe with the visions of its priests. We find their tools laid out with archaeological precision, a shaman's kit for journeying to other worlds. Excavations at Chavin de Huntar have uncovered ornate snuff trays, delicately carved from bone or stone, alongside slender tubes used for inhaling potent psychoactive powders. Residue analysis confirms the presence of powerful substances derived from plants like the vilca tree. But the most significant discovery is the enduring presence of the San Pedro cactus. This tall, columnar cactus contains mescaline, a compound that produces intense, prolonged visual and auditory hallucinations. It was not a recreational drug, it was the sacred vehicle, the key that unlocked the door to the spirit realm. The priests would have prepared a bitter brew from the cactus, drinking it to initiate a state where the stone carvings around them would cease to be static images and begin to breathe. Those swirling, interlocking patterns that adorn the temple walls are not abstract art. They are direct translations of the geometric patterns, the brilliant, shifting lattices of light known as phosphenes that are universally reported in the early stages of a psychedelic trance. A shaman, his mind unfolding under the influence of San Pedro, would stare at a blank wall and see these very patterns swirling into existence. The carvers of Chavin simply made those visions permanent, etching the shared visual language of the altered state directly into the temple's heart. This connection becomes even more visceral when we look at the transforming figures. The sensation of shapeshifting, of feeling one's hands morph into claws or one's face contort into a feline muzzle, is a common somatic experience during deep trance. The carving of the transforming shaman with his emerging jaguar paws and serpent-scaled skin is not a symbolic hope, it is a documented reality. Under the influence of these sacred plants, the priests did not just believe they were turning into powerful animals, they felt it happening in their very bones. Even the ubiquitous fangs make a terrifying new kind of sense. The intense, penetrating sensation of a sharp object, a piercing or a biting feeling, is another frequent report from those in profound altered states. The fanged deity profile, with its single, massive canine, could be the artistic crystallization of that very sensation. The moment the spirit world bites back, its power piercing the shaman's consciousness. Every snarling mouth and downward curving tooth is a testament to a physical and spiritual encounter with a force that was as real to them as the stone they carved. This was not art inspired by belief, it was a cartography of direct experience, a stone map of the invisible worlds their minds could travel. But the true power of Chavin de Huntar did not remain locked within its stone walls. Its influence radiated outwards, a cultural shockwave that rippled across the Andes for 1,000 years, in what archaeologists call the Chavin horizon. This was not a military empire, but a spiritual and artistic one, a revolution in thought that unified a vast region through a shared visual language. The temple was the epicenter, the sacred source from which these powerful symbols flowed. Take the fanged deity motif, that terrifying profile with its single, curved canine. This was not just a local god. We find this exact same snarling visage carved into stone cups and textiles hundreds of miles to the north, in the highlands of what is now Peru. It appears again, centuries later, etched onto the brilliant gold funerary masks of the Moche civilization on the arid north coast. For the Moch, the fanged deity evolved into a central figure, a peak, a god of the mountains and a decapitator, but the core inspiration is undeniably Chavin. The idea of a transformative, piercing spiritual power, first codified in that dark labyrinth, had become a cornerstone of Andean belief. The journey of the staff god is perhaps even more profound. This foundational figure, holding its twin scepters of authority, did not fade into obscurity. Its iconic form was adopted and adapted by the Nazca people, who etched its gigantic likeness into the desert plains, their massive geoglyphs visible only from the sky. 1,000 years after Chavin's decline, the mighty Inca Empire, ruling from their capital at Cuzco, still worshipped a direct descendant of this god, Viracocha, the creator deity who held a staff in each hand. The staff god's lineage connects the very first Andean temple to the very last Andean empire, a spiritual thread unbroken for over 2 millennia. This dissemination was made possible by a sophisticated artistic principle mastered at Chavin, known as contour rivalry. Look at any of their complex carvings, and you will see how a single line can define 2 different forms at once. The curve of a serpent's body might also be the lip of a jaguar, or the space between a god's fingers might also form the shape of a smaller, secondary creature. This was visual magic, a way of encoding multiple layers of meaning into a single, cohesive image. It taught the viewer that reality was not fixed, that one thing could seamlessly become another, perfectly mirroring the shamanic experience of transformation. This artistic technique spread with the iconography, appearing in the dual-figure ceramics of the Paracas culture and the intricate metalwork of later northern kingdoms. The pilgrims who journeyed to Chavn de Huntar did not just bring back stories, they carried home a new way of seeing the world, one where the divine was hidden in plain sight, waiting to be revealed in the beautiful, bewildering interplay of line and form. Chavin was far more than a temple. It was the first great teacher of the Andes, whose lessons in stone would shape a continent's soul. The stone walls we see today are only the surface of a much deeper mystery. Modern technology is now peeling back the layers of time, revealing secrets the Chavin priests never intended for the naked eye. 3-dimensional laser scanning projects a grid of invisible light across every stone surface, mapping the temple with millimeter precision. This process has uncovered carvings that were completely hidden, their forms smoothed away by centuries of wind and rain or concealed under thick blankets of lichen. One stone, long thought to be blank, was scanned and revealed the pristine, sharp lines of a feline face lurking just beneath the biological crust. It was as if the jungle itself had been holding the image in safekeeping. From above, drones equipped with high-resolution cameras capture the entire site in a single, sweeping gaze. This aerial perspective has identified previously unseen alignments in the temple layout, geometric patterns, and processional pathways that are only comprehensible from the sky. These are not random placements. They suggest the entire complex was designed as a single, massive diagram, a celestial map written on the earth. Even the ground beneath our feet is giving up its secrets. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses deep into the soil, painting a picture of the unseen underworld. Early results hint at the existence of entirely new chambers and tunnels, a hidden network that has remained sealed for over 2,000 years. The 25 carvings we know so well are just the prologue. They are the most visible part of a vast subterranean library of stone, a collection of spiritual knowledge that we have only just begun to read. Every new scan, every radar pulse asks the same thrilling question: what other faces are waiting in the dark for the right kind of light to find them? These 25 stone enigmas form a single, breathtaking story. They are the legacy of a people who believed the universe was a place of constant transformation, where sound could bend reality, and where the human mind, aided by sacred plants, could cross into the realm of animal spirits and cosmic gods. The snarling Lanzon, the serene smiling god, the chorus of tenon heads, and the abstract sound wave all speak of a culture that mastered the tools of consciousness itself. They engineered their temple as a resonant instrument and filled it with a visual language of visions, creating the first great spiritual empire of the Andes. We are left with a profound and unsettling question. Were these carvings a lost language of the spirit, a detailed record of drug-induced visions, or the blueprint for a sophisticated system of mind control wielded by a powerful priesthood to command their world? The stones hold their secret close. Tell us in the comments which carving you find the most mysterious and why. Subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest historical puzzles, and remember, some ancient codes are written not to be broken, but to remind us that the past holds wonders beyond our full comprehension.